Miami.
Miami Heat, 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 Miami Heat.
It feel like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today is no one. No one came to work today, so it's just me. Busy week for our staff. As you know, we're doing our watch parties on playback. If you haven't, it was pretty fun last night. I know Brian and Tiff held it down. Links in the chat. We do a lot of games. I think we might do some hate watches. That might be a fun thing to do. So check out our playback, our little playback watch parties. Check out Hangover Time, our Postgame Show right here on twitch.tv/Miami Heat Beat. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure that you tune in live. There's nothing like it live. There's nothing like watching the disasters live. All of it live is the best, and you got to catch it live. So make sure you tune into that. Also, the Weird Off pregame show. Shout out to our YouTube audience. You guys hold it down. We love reading the comments, all the funny and weird shit you guys say. What's up to chat? What's up to Lo Banza? What's up to everybody? We're gonna listen. Today's gonna be a day where let's talk about where we're at 2 games into this series. By the way, if you see on the screen, we have a Jimmy Butler jersey designed by Casey Bannerman. We have very limited ones left. I think there's a few left, so go to caseybannerman.com and check it out. I don't know what the script is in chat, but if you go to our Twitter page, you know, we're linked there. It's our pinned tweet at MIA Heatbeat on Twitter. Get the last of these Butler jerseys. They're authentic NBA quality, so you know they're really, really good. We have the Bam ones that we sold, and everyone's like, "Oh, gee, O'Brien, you know, when are you guys selling more Bam ones?" When they're done, they're done. So, so make sure you get these because these are limited time. We gave Deadman a mechanic one that was a custom order. Deadman loved it. So if you need the mechanics stamp of approval, you got it. But let's talk about this game. Let's talk about game 2. Let's talk about everything that's going on this series so far. I tweeted out a stat from game 2 that I thought was maybe the most telling thing, I think, in this series so far. Last night, Atlanta in the half court, they had a 91.9 offensive rating. In transition, they had a 94 offensive rating. Now, I think Atlanta's big adjustment was let's push off makes and misses. Let's try to create mismatches, not only in the half court in pick and roll, but let's try to juice our transition game. Let's try to get mismatches in transition so we don't let Miami switch from a position of strength. Because Miami wants to switch. And even if we try to hunt Strus, you know, they'll throw bodies and they'll throw traps and they'll hedge and they'll do all their Miami stuff. They'll get arms in the passing lanes and force me into turnovers. They like being in rotation. And I had a couple tweets, and we'll go over some plays where how good Miami is in rotation. But Atlanta, I thought pretty wisely said, okay, well, we're going to push pace. We're going to make this a track meet, and we're going to fucking run. And we're going to get our offense that way. And the result was a 94 offensive rating in transition, which is absolutely abysmal. A lot of that was turnovers. Miami did a really good job of kind of forcing Atlanta into some tough passes in transition. A lot of it was Miami getting back really well. You know, even guys like Tyler and Max, who aren't known for their defense, great job of getting back in transition, kind of getting everything set, even if they're not the matchups they want. And Atlanta did get a couple mismatches they wanted. Miami did enough emergency scrambling on defense to get it done. On the flip side, Miami in the half court, 95 offensive rating. Not good, but that's about what you expect from this team. And especially last night where turnovers were an issue and Bam and Lowry were just bad for the first half, especially. Miami in transition. 178.6 offensive rating. That is not a typo. That is absurd. And what the difference in that game was, Miami was absolutely clinical in transition. And Atlanta wasn't. Atlanta had a worse transition offense than Miami's half-court offense. Let's think about that. Atlanta in transition, 94. Miami in the half-court, 95. Think about how hard that is to do when you have Trae Young and John Collins, right? You have Bogdanovich, you have all these guys, Okongwu, athlete. You have all these guys out and run. And Miami was able to just straight up be better. I think the turnovers for the Heat are a thing. I think a lot of that was lazy passing by Lowry, by Gabe, by Bam, right? It was a lot of carelessness. And I think that, when you come out and you just punk a team like that, Miami made it seem like Atlanta didn't belong in the gym with them in game 1. And I have to think that they put their foot off the gas a little bit, and you could see it. I think you could see it. I think that there was a sense of urgency game 1 that there wasn't until the end of this game. They let Atlanta in the game by letting them run a little bit. They'll get into their offense a little earlier. And basketball is a kind of sport where a couple things don't go your way for a little bit and you let a team into it. There was a point in the second quarter, because I just rewatched the game. I tend to rewatch games with a closer look. I kind of go over every play. First, I go over every defensive possession from the Heat. Then I go over every offensive possession for the Heat. So I try to comb through it. Then I'll rewatch individual actions from certain players and stuff like that. It's kind of my process after playoff games and a lot of big regular season games. So, if you're Miami, you're in the second quarter and Miami goes a little smaller, right? So they go PJ. Well, in the second quarter, actually, it was a Duncan, Max. It was a Duncan, Tyler, and Gabe lineup with Jimmy at the 4 and Dedmon at the 5, right? Which is a little smaller than they like, but by necessity. Caleb had not come in the game yet, and the Heat just completely had a chance to blow that game open, and there were a couple weird plays. There was a block shot that went right into Trae Young's hands, and he got a floater. There was a deflection that was pretty much a steal, and Lowry fell, and then it was a 3 for, I think it was Hunter. Right? So that's a 5-point swing where Miami should have taken the ball and gone the other way. There was another play where Miami basically forced a turnover, and it went into Atlanta's hands, and they got a layup. And it happened back-to-back times, and it just really led Atlanta in the game where Miami was already leading. I think Miami had just gone on an 8-0 run. And then this stuff, after an 8-0 run, if you turn them over that many times and you score on the other end, or at least on half of those possessions, you essentially kind of put the game away at halftime. You're able to take a big momentous lead. You're looking at if you're Atlanta, 14-point deficit going into the half. After what happened in game 1, it feels different. Atlanta kind of crawled back into that game in an ugly way, and nothing that they did schematically held up. I thought the running thing was obviously by design, and part of that was Miami was just missing more shots. So, naturally you're going to have more chances to run. I think the other thing that they tried to do early in the game that really went away, and I thought that was really telling of a couple things. They made an effort to get Trae Young off the ball and then get him back the ball. Whether that meant, other people bringing the ball up instead of Trae, right? Whether that be Herter or Bogdanovich or whoever, they were trying to have other guys bring the ball up and then have Trae come off a pin down, have Trae come off a dribble handoff. That way, if Miami wants to pre-switch some of their off-ball screens, it becomes a little more complicated because you don't know what the last screen is going to be on the action, and they can have several built-in things. And I thought that was pretty successful for Atlanta. It got Trae moving. Instead of having the ball from a standstill position, you get him in motion. Even if that switch comes, that slip is a lot easier because you already have built-in motion into your actions. So I like that look for Atlanta, but they just went away from it. Really, it was the first half of the first quarter they were doing it. And then at one point, it was Trae's all right, give me the fucking ball. I'm bringing this shit up. I'm bringing this shit up, and I'm running the show. And he had 10 turnovers. He had, it was crazy. He had 7. His turnover percentage was, I believe, 17, and his assist percentage was 18. That is absolutely fucking bonkers, man. That's bad. Okay, I have it right here. His turnover percentage was 27.7, and his assist percentage was 20. So he's playmaking as often as he's throwing the ball away, which is just it's an absolute death sentence for a team that needs Trae Young to do pretty much everything for them on offense. Shout out to Daywalker242 for the tier 1 sub. Appreciate that a lot. So if you're Miami, you're winning. You're forcing this guy into turnovers. He was 10 for 20, which is pretty good. 2 for 10 from 3, which I think that's a number if you're Miami that you're like, this guy is not hitting threes. He's not taking the threes he wants. And we're limiting him. He got to the free throw line. Actually, no, he only got to the free throw line 4 times. It's funny. That felt like more. Where he made 3. He went to the line 4 times. That felt like a lot more considering all the damn foul trouble Miami had. Jimmy went to the line 11 times. Kyle 5. And Trae Young had as many turnovers as he did field goals. And if you're going to cut the head of the snake off that way, you're going to win. Trae Young had a 34 usage percentage, highest on the Hawks, and he was a walking turnover. JBM Heat says, I think they have Trae off ball more in game 3. I don't know why the Hawks went away from it when it was pretty productive, giving Trae on-ball duties. Yeah, I think part of that, too, is Trae doesn't like it. I think, I think a lot of this is what players like and what players don't like. And I think he likes to have the ball in his hands. And, you can, as a coach, you can do that. But if you don't have buy-in from your guys, then, you know what I mean? Like, what are you really doing? As I turn on lights behind me. So I think that's a natural adjustment for them in game 3. But we just kind of saw the way that worked. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure how much they go back to that, but he needs to clean up the turnovers. A lot of it is the Heat frazzle him because of the size, because of the different defensive looks that they give him. They don't really give him, sometimes they'll trap, a lot of times they will switch, and he is looking for the switch. But I think Miami's really good at kind of springing things on him. I thought the way, and I had said this last podcast, and I tweeted it too, and I said it on the pregame show. I thought one of the other adjustments that they might do is kind of test Dedmon in a drop more, because I thought Trae was mostly interested in hunting the tres leches, and he wasn't looking for other matchups that were particularly good for him down the stretch or anywhere in the game, really. So what I thought was a good adjustment by Atlanta was he put Dedmon in pick and roll quite a few times. There were like 5 straight possessions when Dedmon was in the game before Miami went to the zone that they were, all right, bring Dedmon up the screen. And I liked what Miami did, and I think that's what a good coach does. The Heat were ready for that because Dedmon played a traditional drop, and he had Gabe fighting over screens, being Gabe, being a bulldog. And then you had Dedmon kind of the next time playing super high up. Right? So the slip man comes, and this is that lineup that I told you about, that it was 3 guards, Jimmy at the 4, and Dedmon. So Dedmon's playing really, really high up, and Jimmy at the nail. The nail, by the way, is the free throw line area. Jimmy's at the nail, and Jimmy sinks to tag that roll man. Because if Dedmon is playing really, really high up on the screen, that roll man knows I got to slip and I got to go, because at that point I'm going to have the advantage. Jimmy recognizes that this is a coverage that they clearly practice. Jimmy steps in and sinks under. He's ready for that drop, for that roll man to come. And the play burns down. And then they load up on the strong side of the ball. They force a really tough cross-court pass. I'll never forget something that Bomani Jones said a long time ago on the Levitard Show. And I don't particularly agree with this, but one of the things that Bomani said once that I'll never forget was, it's really hard if you're Chris Paul when you're the smallest guy on the court and you don't have, like, you're the smallest guy on the court and you need to have the ball in your hand all the time. And I think part of that's the issue with Trae. When Miami can play kind of bigger front courts, even though I'm talking about a smaller lineup, when it's Dedmon and Gabe's physicality up on that screen, it gets tough. Right, and that cross-court pass is a little tougher. It's a little slower. It's a little higher. It gives guys like Tyler the time to close out on the corner. As my camera goes out in classic fashion, and I think Brian texted me. He wants a link. Okay, I'm going to try to send Brian a link. But yeah, that's really where they are. I thought they did a great job defensively in different looks, holding Atlanta to that. I know Bogdanovich really went off at the end. But the fact that Miami had Kyle and Bam give them a big old fat nothing, and they still were able to win. And obviously Jimmy Butler had, the 45-point game, right? Like Jimmy had, and I'm gonna get into Jimmy. I'll get Brian in here. Brian will get into Jimmy. But I mean, he was sensational. But just it just shows you how prepared they are. They knew what Atlanta wanted to do. And they were really ready for it in every sense. Brian, I put the link in the chat. You let me know when you're in there. But, credit to Spoelstra, credit to the Heat for being prepared. That second half felt a lot different. They came out with a little more energy. They were kind of getting the balls. None of that lazy pass shit that they were doing that was incredibly frustrating to watch. So, they are a very, very good defensive team, and I think we saw that in full force. Before Brian gets on, let's talk a little film. Let's talk a little bit about Jimmy Butler, because I thought obviously Jimmy should be the talk of the NBA today. As I'm going to bring Brian Goins here in a second, but Jimmy was the talk of the NBA, and I'm going to get to a little bit of a play breakdown if I correctly have the right scene. Here we go. All right, so I have 3 plays here, and it's Jimmy Butler functioning in pick and roll pretty differently. I thought last night was a really good example of the diversity that he provides on offense in a lot of ways. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. So let's go to this first play here. Now, Jimmy's going to screen, and I apologize for the pod audience that this may not be the most fun thing in the world. Please bear with me. I thought I was going to be alone here on a pod, so I brought some extra content for the people. But let's take a look at some of these plays here. So this first one I have is Jimmy as a roller in the pick and roll. So Lowry's going to come up. Jimmy is going to screen, and this is one of my favorite actions that Miami runs. Atlanta is kind of staying in the paint. They're kind of bailing on shooters. PJ's not really doing anything there, and Max and Caleb or whatever, they're probably going to move. Jimmy's going to roll. Look how good he is on the short roll catch. Pivots, turns. Now Max is moving. PJ's in the corner. They have motion, and Jimmy really can make these plays at the rim. Pump fake, drive, and one. That's what this guy does. And it's almost Embiid-esque, where Embiid is not like this super elite roll man. Jimmy catches that ball at the free throw line, makes a pivot move, catches the defender off his heels, and look at that, just decisive move to the rim, pump fake, takes the contact. That's what Jimmy does, and that's him as a roller. That's not him pounding the ball up top, waiting for a screen. That's Jimmy. That's Jimmy being a screener, being an active participant in the offense. Let's watch that one more time. And again, I want to focus on the spacing. Because Jimmy's a non-shooter, the other guys on the court are shooters. Despite anything about PJ can knock down an open shot. Max is a shooter. Gabe Vincent is a shooter. They're occupying space. Gabe is on the left corner. The other guys are on the right. The other guys are running an action. There's movement. Look, Gallinari has to tag Max, gets him out of the paint. Now Jimmy's one-on-one because that man already, Okongwu was already leaking out to PJ Tucker. That's spacing. Kyle did his job to trigger the pick and roll. Jimmy caught the ball in a scoring position. He makes a basketball move, gets the contact, finishes. Okongwu's not even in the play, right? And that's just how good he is as a player. Let's go to the next one. We're going to do a little bit more Jimmy Butler as a screener. Again, he's going to screen up top for Trae Young. Trae Young is behind the play because he's not a good defender. Now, Kyle's in front, a man in drop. Jimmy's going to roll into space, and Kyle's able to get to the basket because they're occupying. And again, it helps everyone involved, right? When your best player is willing to be a screener. Let's watch this again. Look, Trae Young is not good. Right? Gets him into play, fights over. Trae's behind the play. Kyle has a guy in drop. He's going to beat the guy because he's a little occupied with Jimmy. He's not fully in front of Kyle. He's kind of cheating a little bit. And Lowry's able to finish through contact. Right? And again, that's Jimmy as a scorer, helping his teammates. And by the threat of him, he's helping his guys. Let's go to the last one where Jimmy's on ball in pick and roll. So Tyler this time is going to screen, and Bam's going to screen. So they're running almost a double drag, whatever you want to call it. Not really a double drag, but like a stagger screen thing. But look at where the screens are set. I want to emphasize this because guys like Tyler, guys like Trae Young, they like their screens really out because they want to leverage their three-point shooting ability. Nobody's going to guard Jimmy's pull-up three. I don't care how many Jimmy hits. They're just Atlanta, a good team's not going to care about that. Instead, what Miami does is they set lower screens where Jimmy can pull up into an area where he can actually hurt you. So look at Tyler, look at Bam. If Jimmy wants to, if Bam or Tyler seals their man, Jimmy's going to be able to step into a free throw line jumper. You like that more than a three. I don't care how many threes Jimmy has hit. You'd rather him kind of get into an open pull-up jumper. And by setting those lower screens, almost like Tony Parker and Tim Duncan used to do a little bit of this as well, you get him in the ball in an area where he's more comfortable with. Bam rolls, Jimmy goes, occupies two men. Look at that. Great pass in the air. Bam has Herder on his back. Catch, easy finish, gets the big fella going after a rough fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler's masterpiece of a game, just does it from a scoring perspective, as a screener, as a roller, as a playmaker, does so much for so many people. And again, that's what star players do. And all this discourse and conversation about who's the star player, how much can Jimmy Butler take your team, that's what star players do. They do everything on a basketball court, from offense to defense to everything from screening to passing to shooting to scoring, to bring your team to the finish line. And that's what he did. Let's bring in Brian Goins. What's up, B? I can't hear you.
Sorry. No, I had on mute because I didn't want to interrupt you.
Chat, can you hear
Brian?
Brian?
That was great, man. Did you like just start your own breakdown show?
Brian.
How do you not hear me?
So,
Test.
We'll figure this out. Oh, Brian, talk now.
Test.
There we go. We're back. Okay, look at that. It's part of a live show, guys.
I was saying that I didn't realize you started your own breakdown show. Did you have a name
It's
for it?
not really
yet?
a breakdown show. I didn't have a co-host, so I was like, well, let me scramble to fill some time here. And I brought some stuff because I was watching the game, and I didn't want to bring what I was tweeting about, because I tweeted about their defense and how much I like what they do when they're in rotation. But I thought it's Jimmy's day. We should talk about Jimmy. So
How good was he, man? Like, seriously, like, of all the Heat performances we've seen in the playoffs, where's that rank now, do you think? Obviously, like, the moment doesn't compare to the finals, but in terms of just the sheer will to score the way he did and the efficiency that he did it at, too, like, is it top 5?
I mean, I want to ask you this question because I think this is a little funny to kind of piggyback off that. So Dwayne Wade has the Heat record, 46 points, game 1 against Boston, 1 p.m. game on a Sunday. I'll never forget it. That's when Wade starts yelling at the hand when he hits all those threes, when it was basically him and Joel Anthony screens to the rescue to save them from a sweep. A part of me, Brian, when Jimmy got to the 45 points, I didn't want him to break Dwayne's record. They didn't need it. I mean, obviously, I'd rather them. I don't care if I don't care if they do or whatever. But I think a part of me, deep down. I mean, listen, I'm a Wade lifer, more than anything. A part of me.
Wait, hold on. I'm looking at a stat.
Mm-hmm.
Are we sure that Wade has the record?
Yeah, Wade has 46. That's the record.
Why stat me say that LeBron James has the record at 49 against the Brooklyn Nets in 2014? So
does he? Did I totally miss it? Then maybe I don't remember that. I always remember Dwayne having the career high.
Let's look it up. It says Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Actually have the date.
Hey guys, thanks by the way. Always let us know if our mics are low. I've noticed that sometimes on the pod the Heat beat mics are a little low. So thank you for letting us know. Heat Culture in chats.
You want my mic up? I can turn my mic up.
No. I got it. I it's something I control on OBS.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you. Yeah, chat saying Chris is saying much better mic volume. Chat. Maybe you can help confirm that. I always thought that Dwayne had the record, and I tweeted that yesterday as if I was factual.
I'm pulling up the box score. Hold on, I got the box score, and yep, LeBron James had 49 points in Game 4.
Never mind.
Heat won 102-96 back on May 14 of 2014.
Nope, never mind. Well, then I was in my head.
May 12, 2014.
I was having a fake hypothetical in my head. So
no, Wade's second with his 46. LeBron's first was 49, and then Jimmy's now tied for third with LeBron James with 45.
Yeah, I know that LeBron had 45. I think Jimmy's high in the final was 42.
Jimmy's high in the finals was 40 each.
Jimmy had 0 turnovers last night? That's insane.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler had 0 turnovers last night. Wow. Oh my God.
That last time he scored 40 in the finals, he had 5 turnovers. So,
well, I mean, of course, because he was doing everything on ball. By the way,
I know, but it's very impressive.
Jimmy played 39 minutes last night after I don't even think he cracked 35 in game 1. And Kyle played 37. That's what this is going to be, right? And Bam was in foul trouble, which let's talk. And I want to kind of get into that as well, because I think that was the other interesting part. So there were a couple parts that I thought were interesting from Atlanta's perspective that I covered. I talked about Jimmy and how good he was. Let's talk about, I thought, the most interesting thing on Miami's side. Bam, and I talked about this last pod with Christian and pregame with Frankie and Kenny. Bam got into foul trouble, and Miami went with PJ at the 5, which makes sense because Collins, you kind of like, okay, well, Collins isn't 100%. PJ can keep him off the glass. We can survive these minutes if PJ is going to defend Collins or Okongwu. And we put Jimmy at the 4, and at that, but you can't just go 3 guards with that, right? Because you're really just hemorrhaging size and everything. So Miami goes Caleb, which makes sense. And we talked about that, and that makes the most sense. Bam gets into the foul trouble. Dedmon also was in foul trouble, so they go really, really small. And it's funny because we didn't even talk about that in the context of Bam foul trouble. We talked about that in the context of Dedmon minutes being untenable, which have not been the case at all. So they go Caleb. They go Caleb in the front court with Jimmy and PJ. And those lineups look really good. I do think PJ and PJ's minutes squeezed Duncan. I think Duncan played 6 or 7 minutes that game, and it was only in the end of the first quarter, early second quarter. Duncan played 7 minutes. By the way, Duncan did not get a single pass. I watched every possession that Duncan Robinson played on offense.
I saw you either tweet that or put it in our chat. Yeah, that's crazy.
And it wasn't because I remember on the halftime show, Charles Barkley goes, Atlanta did a great job on Duncan Robinson. And I was like, I guess Duncan hasn't really done anything. I was like, what are they? It's not something I was actively looking at, Yeah. And I wanted to make sure to watch that. And I can't even bring film. It's just really Duncan standing in a corner, and then Duncan kind of leaking to the wing, and then there's a pick and roll somewhere else, and then Miami's either getting fouled or turning it over. So it was just interesting. They didn't run a single dribble handoff for him. He didn't play many minutes with Bam. I think he played 1 or 2 minutes with Bam at max. I wonder if they try to change that, if they want to get him, because they played him a lot with Jimmy, Tyler, Dedmon, and Gabe. That was the bulk of his minutes. And I understand you kind of get a little bit of scoring punch, especially Jimmy and pick and roll with Dedmon, although Gabe did a lot of handling, which I think was kind of annoying. Some of the fan base, Gabe did that second quarter. Gabe was doing a lot of pick and roll handling with Dedmon, which I think you kind of want to pivot a little more to Jimmy in those instances, but I understand that Jimmy also needs a breather. Played again 39 minutes and was doing everything on defense. But yeah, Brian, what'd you think of the Caleb minutes getting back into the rotation?
Okay, so there's a lot of things to dissect there. So obviously the rotation this game way different than game 1. Obviously different circumstance. Miami had a big lead in game 1 compared to game 2. I didn't hate them. I liked the Caleb minutes. Him playing at the 4 next with PJ, that's when they, in that third quarter, that's when they made their run. They took that, was a 14-point lead, and then it was about 11 when they entered the fourth quarter. So obviously that lineup worked. Having Gabe out there with Strus gave you the shooting next to Jimmy to go on that run. And it seemed like it was working pretty fine defensively. Obviously, Bojanovic had a great game. I think going defense over Duncan was the right move for that game too, because you could tell that Atlanta, for what they did in game 1, they came out with a different style of play, they came with a different sense of urgency to try to steal game 2, which they almost did. I know the Miami Heat won by 11 points towards the end of the game, but they did bring it down to 3 points, and really could have been down to 1 had Trae Young made that layup with those last 4 or 5 minutes in the game. And there was even another possession soon after where he almost got fouled on a 3-point shot from Gabe. Luckily, Gabe didn't get called for it. So I think seeing Caleb out there was nice. It seemed, I think Christian tweeted out yesterday, they Atlanta had all the sliver of hope, and then Spoelstra throws in his ace, which is just a card up the sleeve of just throwing Caleb out there, who was the primary defender on Trae Young all regular season. And obviously, Caleb did a good job in terms of shutting down pretty much like Trey didn't have a good second half. He had a good first half, but that second half was mostly Bogdanovic making a lot of contested threes. I know for the Heat, you live with that. I mean, if they make those shots and the rest of the team doesn't, I mean, they still only scored 105 to close that game. Like for defense, in terms of like Miami, and Bam didn't have a great defensive game, and obviously he was in foul trouble too. You live with that, and I think for Miami, they play that pretty well in terms of their defensive strategy, considering all the foul trouble that they were in.
I mean, I said it. I mean, Atlanta had a 92 offensive rating in the half court. Like, it's just not going to cut it. So, even if some of their guys have good shooting nights, and Bogdanovic was 5 for 10 from 3, a lot of those in the second half. Atlanta shot 30% from 3 for the game. Just, again, their offense. It's
crazy. They're number 2 3-point shooting team in the NBA, and they haven't even cracked 40% once. Not even close.
Yeah, but it's, and it's funny because Miami does a great job of helping off corner shooters to swarm the paint, and I think Atlanta's turnovers have really bailed the Heat out of a couple times. And I think if Atlanta has, somebody asked me on the timeline, do you think this is a sweep? I'm like, there's gonna be a game where Atlanta just hits a ton of shots, and if they correct the turnover problem, I think the games are going to be a little more competitive because they're going to be able to kind of get out to their corner shooters a little bit better, or their lob threats if Miami is rotating out to the shooter. I mean, there has been several times, Brian, where they have Okongwu or they have Collins kind of open for a roll and Trey just straight up misses, or Trey's driving and that help man comes and he kicks it out and he just completely bobbles the pass. So
but that's the defense that, I mean, Gabe, you can tell he's under his skin.
Yeah.
Possession by possession, picking him up full court.
Very
even.
physical.
Like I honestly can't praise him enough. I saw people tweeting, I think you mentioned earlier, like people tweeting about Gabe's minutes. Like, I don't know what you can do. You have to keep playing him in the series. And this is exactly why it's great that Miami has all these, different perimeter defenders that they can throw on Trey Young.
Gabe played
for
the third
reasons
most
like that. Like if they were in a series right now against Brooklyn, you would want Gabe on like a guy like Kyrie. And this series in particular is a very ball dominant guard in Trey, and it's amazing that we have Gabe out there over a guy like Kendrick Nunn.
Right, and we had him. They even had him last year, and in the bubble.
But he was not like this last. I mean, he had the good defensive games, but he was not this kind of player. He definitely improved
the shooting
from last season this year.
I think the defense was really. I think he was defensively ready, but I mean, truly, the shooting and the ball handling wasn't there, and the fact that he's running pick and roll is just a huge plus. I mean, he's just a really.
Can we talk about like just how amazing it is that, like, I think entering the postseason, we were all kind of a little nervous about the rotation itself in terms of some of these G League guys getting their first actual playoff run, their minutes and stuff. Like, have you been impressed with the way you've seen Strus play and game play, and even Caleb a little bit yesterday?
So I've thought about this a bunch, and I think for guys like Gabe and Max and these undrafted dudes, they've like every game for them getting into the league, even in the league, has stakes, because if you don't play bad, you could get cut, right? You don't have a pedigree of a draft history, or you don't have, you weren't a highly touted prospect. So for these guys, every time they step on a court, it was a little different than a guy who was drafted who has a little more leeway. So I think the playoffs, at least from a nerves perspective, I don't think that kind of jitter gets those guys, because they've always had to play with the target on their back. Because if they're like, if I don't perform, I'm not going to be here. Right? That's what people talk about with the undrafted guys, a chip on your shoulder, stuff like that, and I'd love to hear one of them talk about it. I hope somebody can ask them if something like that's true. But that's kind of what I thought, Brian. It's like, you play your whole life, every summer league game for them is Game 7 of the NBA Finals, because it truly could be, if I don't play well, I go home. You know what I mean? So I think that they're used to that kind of pressure. It's pressure that they put on themselves. So a first-round series against a bad defense isn't going to activate that. Where I want to see it happen is against a team like Boston, Milwaukee, when the stakes are high and that defense is intense and scary and a lot of pressure is put on you. That's what I want. That's when I want to see them. But for a first-round series, just because it's a playoff game, I don't think, I even think against the Sixers, I don't know how much of that they'll feel, as well, especially because the Sixers are a little bit flaccid defensively. Even Toronto has scored a bunch. It's just Philly's offense has just been insane, which I think is an interesting thing to look ahead to, not to get ahead of ourselves, but the fact that Philly's defense has just not been up to par, I think actually favors Miami, that they can kind of grease their offense a little bit. But yeah, I mean, and a guy like Caleb, by the way, Brian, who, to go back to him and kind of his journey, he has not been the same since the injury. The finishing at the rim, not the same burst. I think as a shooter, he's been pretty consistent. So I don't want to say it's real or not real, but the shooting has been pretty good. But it's the stuff at the rim on both ends of the floor that have gone away. Because Caleb would make plays pretty consistently, either blocking shots, contesting at the rim, or making dunks, or in the fast break. That just hasn't been the case. He's down to 66% at the rim, which he was in the 70s earlier in the year. 42% from three this year, by the way. Really, really good. Shout out to Caleb for that, becoming a shooter. But I'm a little concerned about him in a series, where it's a little more physical and a little more rough, because if he's not the same dude, it gets tough. And in a way, I understand why his minutes got squeezed.
So Caleb's actually been the Miami's best three-point shooter since the All-Star break. He was shooting about 54% since the All-Star break. This is a stat from Simon Sperling, at Simon Sperling on Twitter. So, I mean, Caleb, for what he hasn't really shown at the rim, he has still kept the spacing, which I think is good. I think he showed that he could still shoot yesterday. He made a couple threes, or he made at least one in his limited minutes. So just having him out the floor, it'd still be able to provide that spacing, despite the rim pressure that he was giving it early in the season. I think eventually he'll come around. He might still be hurt. He wasn't on the injury report. I don't think.
No, it's not that he's hurt, but like if your Achilles is fucked up, you know what I mean?
I mean, all these guys are playing hurt.
No, but I mean, Brian, he just doesn't look the same. By the way, Heat Culture, I turned my mic up, so let me know if that sounds better. I'm not peaking, but I should be fine. But let me know. Yeah, no, I mean, he just doesn't look the same. So I'm just. Is
it just the dunks? What exactly are you looking more for?
Not like, the burst.
I know you're saying finishing, but like I know he's not dunking the way he was before. If that's what you were thinking.
That's kind of where it starts. It's also the stuff on defense, just not really
chase down blocks.
Yeah, just not making plays at the rim as consistently when that was just really his MO. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of it could also just be the fact that he hasn't really had like a solidified rotation.
Well, no, Brian, his fucking Achilles is sore. He was out with an Achilles sore for weeks.
He had a couple good games when he was starting.
Yeah, but they weren't.
Jimmy's hurt.
It wasn't springy like he was the first half of the season. My point is like he's still a good player, but he lost the thing that made him really special because
I'm just saying it could be more than just that. It could just also be like mental.
Yeah, I don't.
Just him not having consistent minutes or knowing exactly what his role is, or just not really knowing when exactly he's getting his playing time.
Yeah, I don't.
Could affect him. I mean, it affected a guy like Gabe. He admitted it in his interviews.
Yeah, so we have to see about that. By the way, please, I maxed out my volume on OBS. I put it up.
Do you guys want me to put?
No,
on my
you're
volume?
Good. Everyone likes you. I just don't want to peak. I'm always scared of peaking.
You sound fine to me.
I hope so.
But also, I'm not listening on the Twitch.
Yeah, I want Twitch. I care about Twitch and pod audience right now, so I want them to be good. Okay, everybody says I sound fine, because I know on the pod I do sound low, and I've lamented how low Heat Beat sounds on the pod feed, and I don't like that. So I'm actually like actively correcting that. So like, please let me know, guys. Thank you. So that's just what I'm worried about, Caleb. They should be good. I think going into Game 3, Bam did not play well.
Let's just say with Caleb, like he's not even technically in like the actual like 8 to 9 man rotation. He's like the next guy up.
Yeah, let's pivot to Bam, Brian, because Bam did not have the prettiest night.
Oh no,
I don't know if his hands messed up still. He doesn't look. Alfred mentioned he doesn't look.
He has an injury, a new injury that was put on the injury report this last game.
So
he entered Game 2 with as a quad contusion, which is an injury. It's like a deep bone. It's like a deep bone bruise in his quad. It usually takes a couple weeks for that injury to clear up. I think he had that same injury. Last time I remember him having that injury was, I want to say was maybe 4 seasons ago when we still had Jay Rich and Winslow. He had hurt himself in that that red-pink scrimmage game. I remember Alex Toledo was at it.
Choppy baby.
And I remember he hurt himself that game. He was basically out that entire preseason. He barely played in the preseason up until the start of the regular season. So he's had that injury once before. I don't know if he's had it since, but it's very similar. I'm not sure the degree of it. They haven't said. I mean, obviously, he played the last game. I imagine he's still going to continue to play through it. But it did seem like he was playing hurt. There was moments in the game I remember seeing in the fourth quarter when he came back in with those 4 fouls that he wasn't jumping at all. I mean, towards like the last couple of minutes, I did see him, put in a little bit more aggressive effort into some of his like jumping on rebounds. But like on offense, man, it just he didn't seem like he wanted the ball to begin with. Like it seemed like he was more passive than usual, which seemed odd. So it's to me, and it was what Tiff was mentioning in our playback room. It seemed to me that this injury, it's affecting him in some capacity.
Because it's funny because Alpha and I were talking that it looked like a hand thing because he couldn't like control the ball, on the catch. But yeah, that makes sense too. If he's not been able, I think part of catching the ball is like, you catch and you pivot your body. And if your lower body's not working right, that makes total sense. There were a couple plays where Collins sprung free, right? They'll like kind of brush screen and Collins will like dart to the rim and bam, it's just like left behind there. And I'm like, whoa, that's not normal. You know what I mean? I'm not used to that. So, hopefully they can finish this series quickly and he can get some rest. Hopefully, the other series in the East, Boston and the Nets, I was about to call them New Jersey, look like they hopefully can go the distance. That's good for so many reasons, but to prolong it a bit so that Miami can get a little bit of rest. Nets up right now in Boston by 9 in Boston, so that's interesting. And you hope that Toronto can put up a bit of a fight against Philly, kind of being home, getting Scotty Barnes back, hopefully. And Gary Trent's supposed to play today as well. So, we'll see how that goes. Kyle, not his best showing, just poor shooting, which that happens. But to me, Brian, it was the turnovers. It was, 24% turnover percentage, 7 assist percentage. That's just absolutely fucking brutal.
Yeah.
He had 2 assists on the night.
I mean, if we're going to go down player by player, I mean, really the only 2 or 3 guys that played the best for Miami yesterday was Gabe, Jimmy, I guess Max.
I got to be honest with you, Brian, on rewatch. And again, it wasn't like Tyler played well. Tyler was 5 for... I watched the game again. I thought Tyler was
5 for 11, right?
5 for 11.
He was at 50%, and he took a 3 that he should have made at the fourth quarter, and he missed it.
The 1 for 4 from 3 is, I think, what bothers people. Didn't really...
It was the most quietest 15-point game I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, because he would score like in the second quarter. He had like a little stretch where he got hot, and then again in the third quarter where he pretty much made all his shots. But it was like long stretches of the game where he was just like, he was very feast or famine. I thought defensively he was pretty good. I thought his rotations were good, which is he knew where to be. I thought he competed, and I thought he earned the minutes that he got. I did think that Duncan didn't really get a chance. And I think I think they got, I mean, obviously Jimmy had it going, but sometimes you may want Duncan in those situations where Tyler's not super good. But after rewatch, I thought Tyler was fine. I don't think he was great, but if your bench scorer gets 15 points, that's kind of what a 6-man does. 15 to 18 points.
What's crazy is that we're all expecting like 20 plus from every night now.
If Tyler had made that 3,
that's what he was averaging in the regular season. But
Brian,
still,
if Tyler made that 3, he would have been 2 for 4 from 3, and we would have had 18 points. He would have been 6 for 11. We would have said he's great.
Yeah, but then also like he got a lot of easy baskets from the free throw line at the end of the game. So like. They really have. I mean, his 15 is a little different than the 15.
That's totally true too. He got 4 points off free throws. He got fouled twice at the end. Absolutely true. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was mostly fine. I thought the only thing was that he wasn't super assertive. But it just sucks because it compounded.
One thing I did notice a lot, and it seems like Atlanta's like really doing a good job in terms of doubling him. It seems like every time he gets the ball in the pick and roll, they're sending 2 at him. And it's basically like slowing him down that second that he needs in order to get through a pick or figure out what exactly he wants to do with the ball. And at that time, like that basically that split second that he needs to make that decision, he's not reacting quick enough, and it kind of blows up that part of possession. He has to basically either decide to swing it or go, depending on the shot clock, go for like a contested like jumper that he normally I mean, right now the series he hasn't been shooting efficiently. But
well, that's why.
Yeah, Brian, it just seems like they're playing way different than we've seen in the regular season against him.
That's why I kind of advocated for. It's funny that we're kind of here, but a little bit more dribble handoff because they haven't run a ton of them in this series. They really, I mean, that's really just exited their shot diet this series. So if I'm Miami, maybe I want to spice up my offense, go back to old reliable. I mean, their offense has been mostly fine. I think a 95 in the half court is pretty okay.
Could be better though.
It's better than what they were in the regular season. So that's.
I mean, they're still scoring over 110 per game. So that's good. At least they're still scoring. They're not like struggling to break 100 in the playoffs.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah. So, it's not too bad, but
But you can tell like there's moments in the game where, obviously Jimmy didn't have that great game last game. It'd probably be a different outcome because I don't know who else you could really count on. And it was something that I was talking to Tiff in our playback room. Is like, I was a little nervous entering that fourth quarter. Like as good of a game that Jimmy had, he brought you so much and played so many minutes. I wasn't sure how much he still had left in the tank to close out that game. And so that was a good test that Miami was able to pull through and still win that game off of Jimmy's back. Because it seemed like outside of that one game three, most of the buckets came on Jimmy and Jimmy alone. So I still think Miami needs to find that second score in the series, like a consistent second score, because obviously that game one was Duncan and Jimmy. The rest of the guys had like about 10 points, but I think they need to figure out who the second guy is going to be in the series so that they get them confident enough when we get into that Philly matchup. Because right now it hasn't been Bam and it hasn't really been Tyler either.
Miami in the half court on the season, 97.6 points per 100 possessions, 11th in the NBA. Atlanta, 101.1 points in the half court per 100 possessions, first in the NBA. Miami has absolutely neutered their half court offense. Miami has absolutely dominated them defensively. Their transition offense, Miami has absolutely just obliterated. And Atlanta had a really good offense this year as well. So, it's
yeah, defensively, man, they've been playing to what we expected, maybe even a little bit better.
Atlanta,
the offense at points, you just want to see some of these other guys outside of really just Jimmy carrying the whole entire scoring load. Like, and I know he said it in his post-game quotes yesterday. Like, he said it to TNT, like, oh, did he feel like entering this game that he needed to take more of a role of scoring? And he basically said, yeah, especially with his teammates struggling. He mentioned that because he had it going and because of the way, the game was playing out, he felt like he needed to score the ball a lot. Obviously, that's why he got his 45. But you can't expect Jimmy to be like that every game. Obviously, the playoffs, each game is different. So game 3, I'm sure will be a lot different in game 2 and game 1. I just want to see a little bit more life on offense from both Bam and Tyler. Tyler more especially. I think Bam, defensively, he's holding his ground. If he can get you 10 to 15 this series, I can live with that. I really just want to see Tyler get the ball going because seeing guys like Tyrese Maxey, Jordan Poole, who's the other young guards in the league, like Jalen Brunson, like these guys going off for 30 a night, Tyler's more capable of scoring like that. And it just seems like we haven't seen that from him. And I don't know why it is because I don't think he's dealing with any injuries himself. It just seems like it's more of him getting the spots. I don't think he's getting the spots as easily as he used to.
That's very well said. They're in control of the series. They're gonna go into Atlanta. I think Lowry will give them a little more too. I think Bam's injury, hopefully he can start feeling like himself. They don't need him this series. Honestly, if they go up 3-0, I wouldn't even mind them sitting him like they did Dwayne against the Bucks.
They did that with Jimmy in game 4 against the Pacers in the bubble. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So Spo has a history of just when they're up 3-0 and they just know that they're better, maybe just sit a dude to buy him a little bit of rest, which I don't think be the worst thing considering they have shown you that they can patchwork some center minutes, and if you give Yurt 7 minutes, you give Dedmon the start, and then you get another 7 minutes at a PJ at the 5, you might patchwork enough, against a dead Atlanta team to kind of get you to the finish line of that series, in 4 games. Nick the Quick 04 says, I think a little bit more.
You can get Markieff in that game too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a game that maybe Markieff gets some run.
I think a little more from Lowry too with Bam and Hero. Yeah, and I agree with the Lowry thing. He was just not particularly. He was not himself. The turnovers were just, and I said before, uncharacteristic. I thought at the end of the game though, he really bounced back to life a bit. Had that big play that I highlighted earlier with Jimmy screening, kind of got to the basket and won. I think he settled them a little bit as well late.
Now, that shot and then the Gabe shot before that Jimmy 3 at the end to really seal the game, those were big buckets because obviously Atlanta was coming bucket for bucket towards the end with Bogdanovic making all those contested threes as we were mentioning earlier, and it seemed like that they had a chance to tie that game. And Miami still won by 11 points. They won on like an 8-0 run or something towards the end of the game to win by 11. So, to me, it felt like that was a great testament to their half-court offense showing up in the fourth quarter compared to what we normally see. Like those 2 Utah games still scare the fuck out of me.
Oh, that's funny. So that's really where we're at for game 2. Kind of final thoughts here. I don't know how many more cards Atlanta has to play. Capella changes the series, so
he's still out.
I think his availability is going to really determine what Atlanta can do. I think they're going to go home. They're going to kind of probably hammer home some of the stuff that they did early on in the game that they went away from. I think that, their half-court offense has to progress to the mean a little bit. The fact that they're, in the low 90s when they're so good, that part to me is a little crazy. Let's see how that kind of plays out. I think the Capella coming back gives them a little bit more vertical spacing that they need. So we'll see. I mean, we've seen players come back from injury early in the playoffs when their season's on the line. He won't be 100%, but he brings a physicality to them that I think they don't have. They're a little bit soft in the inside, and kind of just Jimmy bullies his way in there, whether it's off pick and roll or whatever. I know that Woj had said that he's gonna miss a week from that injury.
So he's gonna be reevaluated on Friday, which is game 3, right? Yeah, because they're off today, tomorrow. So I don't think he's gonna play game 3, but there is a possibility that he could be upgraded questionable. And maybe he might test it out, same way John Collins just did. Kind of coming out of nowhere to play these first 2 games of the series because I don't think most of us are expecting him to play. So, yeah, it could be a possibility that Capella plays game 3. We'll see. I think most likely game 4 will be the first time we see him.
So, eyes on that. I think Miami's in good control. Foot on the gas, kind of hammer home what they do. I don't really think Miami has to make too many adjustments. Like I said, if I do anything, it's maybe give Tyler a little bit more stuff out of the handoff to kind of get him going. Same with Duncan to kind of incorporate him into the offense a little bit because, I think that was kind of inexcusable how they just did not get him the ball at all. And again, you can go rewatch those minutes. They just made no effort. And part of that's on Duncan too. I mean, Duncan can't force himself into things, right? He just, everybody has to play their role, but it was just kind of weird. It's just weird to watch, a 6-minute stretch of basketball, 7-minute stretch of basketball where this guy just straight up, Brian, he didn't even touch the ball. It's not like they gave him the ball to like even pass it to somebody else. The dude never touched the ball. It was incredible. It was crazy. So, kind of probably, I'm sure that's going to be talked about in the film. All the other stuff we talked about, and that stuff's going to be interesting. So
yeah, it was a weird game for sure. Like, as good of a win it was still definitely a weird game, but it's a game that happens in the playoffs, and you need your superstar to come through in moments where you don't know where you're going to get your offense from.
Yeah.
So it's just great that Jimmy was able to do that, and they were able to go up 2 in the series, and they still have home court. And if they just split one of these next 2, which I expect them to win all 4, but if they split one of these next 2, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it if that's what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Guys. So that's where we're at. Remember, Weird Alf pregame show 30 minutes before every single game. The Hangover Time postgame show is live after every game. Alf and the crew, Brass, everybody, we have a good time. The games have been fun. They've been exciting. We slander. We have drinks. We have a great time. So make sure to tune into that. Make sure to do all that fun stuff. Brian and I are going to be here holding it down for Hebe. Brian, can you tell people a little bit about Playback? Because I've been talking about it, but I'm not the play. You're the playback guy, so explain playback a little, what it is, and why they should join us.
Okay, so basically, playback is the same way you watch the game either on your laptop or on your phone. You get to watch it same time, same way. You can watch it with whatever service that you're using, your cable service provider, NBA, League Pass, whatever you're using. But on playback, you connect it same way you would connect like any of those other authentication access channels that you have on your smartphone or on your regular devices. You get to watch the game with us in real time, and it's all synced up together. So everybody that's in the chat room, everybody that's in this room watching the game with us is able to watch it at the exact same time. And what's actually pretty cool is that the feed that I get on playback is like a minute faster than the one I get from both Bally Sports and the TNT app on my actual like Roku device. So I've been watching the game a lot more on playback just because I get all the reactions a minute faster. So I'm able to like not miss anything on Twitter, because usually I try to avoid Twitter so I don't miss anything or I'll get spoiled. But yeah, no, it's super cool. So you get to basically watch us react to every moment that's happening. We've been doing a lot of second halves, but I think maybe we'll probably do definitely on the weekend game, probably game 4, we'll definitely do a full game. But it's just cool. Like you get to basically chat with us. You get to come on stage if any of you guys ever wanted to talk to us.
Kind of like a Twitter Spaces.
And yeah, it's almost like a Twitter Spaces in a way. Yeah, it's different because you have video too with it. So you could you put your camera on if you want to talk to us. You don't have to use your camera. You could just chat and just say shit and chat, and we'll react to it, and it's really cool. To me, I think it's one of the coolest things that has come out in terms of like a platform that's giving people access to react to games, like content creators like us using actual NBA footage. Because normally a lot of the watch parties that you see that are virtual, the NBA blocks the access to be able to use any of their video live, obviously, because you want people to steal your stream. You don't want people to steal the content. But this just makes it in a way where you just have to authenticate whatever access that you have that you currently pay for, whatever cable platform you have. You just authenticate it, and you can still watch the game. And it's just everybody gets to watch at the same time, and we get to react and you get to listen to us talk shit. And if you want to come on talk shit with us, you can.
So JBM Heat asked, what if I allegedly use a certain streaming sites to watch games? You need to authenticate your cable. So if you
yeah, you can still technically, yes, you can actually still watch it that way. You just want to be able. So playback has an option where if you don't authenticate it, it'll just black out your screen, but you can still see us on there. You can still listen to us, and you can still respond to us.
Okay. That's
so
cool.
Yes, there is a way. You just won't. It'll probably be different on your screen. Your feed might be slower than ours.
Yeah, because
that's the difference.
Playback will sync it. So tune into that. Links in the chat. We also tweeted out a ton. Also, make sure to check out the Brand. Do you know the script for the Casey jerseys?
Is it exclamation Casey?
It wasn't when I tried it. I don't know. Exclamation Bannerman. I don't. Yeah, I should know these things, but regardless, I'll put the link in chat. Listen, it's a really, really good product. Casey's done a tremendous job with these jerseys. Limited quantity remaining. As Brian and I just try random shit in the chat. Here's the link. I have it right here. CaseyBannerman.com/product/MVP art.
I think today is the last day. I was talking to him earlier. He's putting in the order. So whatever last orders that might come through by the time you guys get this, if it's closed, it's closed and it's gone for good.
Yeah. So
if you're watching this live, rush that link. Let me even see if it's still open. Because I'd rather be. Yeah, it's still open.
It's still open.
You can buy a jersey. There are some sizes that are sold out. So if you need a small, sold out. If you need a triple XL, 4XL, they're sold out. Looks like all sizes: medium, large, XL. XL's out too. So yeah, there's like very few quantities remaining. So if you guys really want one, if you're medium, large, I guess a 2XL, that's about it. Those are the only sizes remaining right now.
Look at this jersey.
Run right now to your computer, buy it, because this is the only time, especially this design, the Heat are not selling a white hot jersey, which seems like a missed opportunity for them. But Casey came through and is getting you guys your own Jimmy Butler white hot jersey.
Look at that.
Custom made. Quality stitching is by far one of the best I've seen. Like, I have NBA authentic jerseys. This stitching to me seems almost a little bit better than some of the NBA jerseys I do have. And what's even better is like that design that you see right now, that Jimmy Butler back design, completely hand drawn by Casey himself, that he was able to import into his editor. Like, it looks amazing in print. And we have the BAM one. I know you have yours, I think, probably framed by now, G.
Yeah.
It just looks amazing. Like, the quality of the print itself is also good. And you don't have to wear it. Like, to me, I'm not a person that wears jerseys, but I know for sure I'm going to frame mine.
Look at this. Get the Heat Beat.
It's artwork.
Patch. You want the Heat Beat patch? And then you get the back with the GBP. So make sure to check that out. It supports us. It supports the show that you love, and you get cool shit. And we like doing cool shit with cool people. That's really the MO of Heat Beat. So make sure to check out that. It's been a giant fucking commercial at the end of the show. We love you guys. Tune into Hangover Time. WAP.
And then
Need
shop
the
that
group tomorrow. Yeah.
New merch is coming.
There you go. So
this game bullies.
This game.